Hello, well welcome to my easy to understand guide to Katy Perry's music video Roar. Now Roar is a set music video on the GCSE Eduqas Media Studies exam for component 1. Many schools study Katy Perry and Roar, but not all of them, so please don't panic if you are not one of them. I also have videos on my channel for Taylor Swift as well, so please check that out. So in this video, I'm going to go through the music video shot by shot and try and explain the choices of media language and how it might represent Katy Perry and other people within the video and why it might appeal to the target audience. So the video starts off in quite a comic book style, quite light-hearted. It feels as though it's been kind of rotoscoped, which is essentially where somebody has kind of drawn over the shots. It feels a bit 50s, 1950s in terms of style, and that kind of makes it feel quite youthful and light-hearted. It may well target a younger audience, but also older audiences who might recognise that comic book style as something from their youth, and it feels quite nostalgic. There's quite a big kind of special effects sequence with a plane crash and smoke everywhere at the beginning. And these kind of special effects and big set pieces may well make it feel like Katy Perry is quite a high budget singer, you know, that she's got enough money and her record label are happy enough in her success that they're able to fund these quite big budget videos. And it makes it feel very much more like a film than a music video. We see a shot of her staggering through the woods. She seems quite vulnerable and scared from her facial expressions and her body language, which is quite a typical representation of women in many music videos and media products in general. Whereas we see the man in a medium close-up, he's looking a lot more strong and powerful. He's got quite a confident facial expression, and he's actually taking selfies of himself, so very blissfully unaware of the danger that he's in, maybe reflecting men as being kind of a little bit dim, but also kind of reflecting this idea of a selfie culture and people being quite vain, so perhaps reflecting the context of the culture in which we live. She uses lyrics like, I used to bite my tongue and I was scared to rock the boat. So perhaps reflecting this idea that women are often, you know, try to keep quiet and not do anything that is going to upset other people. So quite reflective of this idea of women having to be kind of quiet and meek and not too confident, not too bold. She says, so I sat quietly, agreed politely, and the man gives her his bag, which kind of suggests that women are quite marginalised and that men are quite arrogant and they treat women, you know, like they're kind of servants or slaves. This is supposed to be a kind of reference, apparently, to her relationship with the comedian Russell Brand at the time. So some audiences may well have found this quite amusing, this idea that she's kind of referencing her relationship and making fun of how she used to be when she was with him. We see a CGI tiger, and this CGI tiger, obviously the CGI makes it feel quite special and exciting and dramatic and scary, which adds a bit of excitement and drama to the video. But again, makes Katy Perry seem quite powerful because she's able to afford these special effects. We see a low angle shot of the tiger, which makes it seem more dominant. And then we see a kind of shot of Katy Perry being chased, which makes her seem like the victim. And we then see other kind of predators, you know, crocodiles, tarantulas, and it plays on the audience's fears of these things, but also plays on this fear of people being victimized, people being in dangerous situations, and women may relate to that idea of being in dangerous situations and feeling like they are vulnerable to something. Her outfit is not really practical at all, so it's this idea that she doesn't fit in, she's not used to the jungle. We see these kind of what look like eyes in the forest, and as she says, I see it now, she realises that the eyes are actually kind of like fireflies or glowworms, and it's this idea that she's becoming cleverer, she's learning the rules of the jungle and she's becoming more accustomed to its nuances. She actually gets down on all fours, which makes her seem quite animalistic, you know, wild and aggressive. And she says, hear me roar. And we kind of tilt down to the water and we see a reflection of a tiger. So it's this idea of her becoming more confident and maybe seeing the inner tiger, seeing something inside her that is perhaps more confident and aggressive. So the camera starts to track into a close-up on her, which makes her feel more confident and powerful because she's taking up more of that frame. She says, floating like a butterfly, stinging like a bee. This is an intertextual reference. It's something that Muhammad Ali, who was quite a famous boxer, used to say. And it's this idea of being quite delicate but being powerful and aggressive. So it's something that might represent her as being kind of that delicate female but actually having a hidden power. But the reference being to something like Muhammad Ali, which is a kind of older male person from kind of sport in history, might be familiar to an older target audience. So a good way of drawing in that slightly older audience who would be familiar with that quote. So she uses a lot of feminine iconography to turn it into weapons. So for example, she uses her heels to make a spear. It's quite clever. It kind of takes this idea of femininity and makes it into a more aggressive thing. So she's almost taking the mickey out of the things that women often wear in media products, but actually making it into more of a violent product. So she changes outfit here, and she kind of turns her outfit into something more practical. So it's this idea that she is changing, she's becoming more used to the jungle and more accustomed to it, and she's adapting. And again, she says, "Hear me roar" in the lyrics. This is a reference to a lady called Helen Reddy, who was a kind of a feminist singer several decades ago. And some of her lyrics said, I am woman, hear me roar." So again, a reference that older audiences would get, but something else that reinforces this kind of feminist message about women being quite powerful. So we get a shot of her legs, and there's some sort of suggested nudity in the shower scene. So obviously you don't see anything because it's a music video and they can't show that kind of stuff, but it is implied that she is nude, and that is still sexualizing her. So even though there's this feminist message, there's still very much this idea that female artists do have to be sexualized to a certain extent to sell music videos. We see some shots of her taming nature. So she's sitting on top of the crocodile, brushing his teeth. So this idea that she's defeated a predator. She's entering a dark cave and the low-key lighting, this idea that she's facing her fears. Something that was terrifying her earlier in the video is now no longer scary. When she comes out of the cave, she's changed her outfit again, bless her, is another one. This one's using more animal print and it's a lot more sexualised, a lot more revealing. She's adapted even more and she's now much more at home here. But again, reinforces this message that women need to be sexualised to be powerful. So we get this big crane shot where the crane kind of comes down the waterfall and we see her dancing and singing, and it's this idea of showing her power, making her seem quite confident, dominating the space that she's in. She swings on a vine across the frame, and it feels very much like a reference to Tarzan, which would again be something familiar to many audiences and makes her feel quite dominant and powerful. We see a shot of her flexing her muscles as well, and we track closer in on that, and it's that idea of making her feel dominant, aggressive, powerful, physically strong. And that low angle of her as well, seeing her in front of the sort of scenery on the island, again makes her feel quite dominant within the frame. She starts to call the animals and the animals start to appear, so birds, elephants, monkeys, etc. This idea that she can talk to the animals and command them. It feels very much like Tarzan, Dr. Dolittle, that kind of thing. So it gives her this element of power and domination over the natural surroundings. Now we start cross-cutting backwards and forwards between her and the tiger, which adds this feeling of conflict. There's going to be some kind of fight or aggression between the two of them. And we see her with a red piece of clothing on a stick, which is very much like, we see sometimes bullfighters holding up a red coat. So it's this idea that she's taunting it, she's daring it to come closer. So she's much more confident now. And then we get this two shot showing them both roaring at each other. And the two shot is there to show us that they're both equal at this point. They're both just as powerful as one another. And that's when we get the CGI tiger kind of comes out towards her, and then suddenly it sits down and it's like it's been tamed, she's beaten it. So the kind of sitting down of the tiger shows how powerful she's become and that she is now the kind of king of the jungle, if you like. And that is emphasised when we then see her next sitting on a throne. She's got a kind of crown on, and so it makes her feel like the queen or the royalty within this particular scene, and that would appeal to female audiences wanting to feel powerful as well. Her legs are spread, which again is quite a sexual position to be sitting in. Again, emphasising this idea that female artists end up being sexualised in the media. And now the tiger has a collar on with a very clever tag on it that says Katy Perry. So adding this element of humour, and again this idea that she's managed to domesticate this massive beast. So it makes it feel lighthearted. She's surrounded by animals. They feel like her servants, and the camera tracks out showing her kingdom, if you like, that she now owns and is in control of. So now she's taking selfies, which is a kind of throwback to the beginning when the man was, but rather than seeming vain, she's making silly faces, so it feels more humorous, and it feels like she's not vain. She's got a sense of humour, and she's being kind of silly and light-hearted about it, which may be appealing for audiences. So she's again using more kind of feminine items like fruit to make lipstick, and she's even painting the elephant's toenails, which again is using this idea of like feminine iconography, but kind of taking it and showing that you can still be powerful whilst doing these things. So she wakes up on a plane at the end, which tricks the audience into thinking maybe this was all a dream. And then cleverly the camera kind of tracks back and we see that it really was a crashed aeroplane. And it becomes rotoscoped or cartooned again. And then we get the end come up on the screen. And that adds that filmic feel for an audience as well. So overall, it's this idea that when women are with men, they are weaker and they are often subservient and marginalised. But actually, once the man is gone, the idea is that women can be stronger and they can grow and they can survive on their own, which again is reflective of this reference to her relationship with Russell Brand that she was trying to put across to audiences. So that was my easy to understand guide to Katy Perry's Roar. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more notifications about videos I upload that are relevant to you at GCSE. And don't forget you can leave a comment below if there's any videos you would like that I don't already have.